All right, everyone, welcome back into another NFL props video. Going to be touching on the top prop bets here for this Saturday two-game slate. Let's go ahead and get into it. Now, we are going to be talking about the Saturday games, but I do want to call it this big prop line difference that we are getting for Matthew Stafford and his fantasy score. So obviously, it's going to draw a more difficult matchup this week. And we look at the average sportsbook line. They're giving him a projected fantasy score of 13.7. The projection data also agrees with that. You look at the underdog line, they have it at 15. Or sorry, the PrizePicks line, they have it at 15. And so this underdog line at 17.2 screams to me to be too high. Now, this could be a situation where if you actually think Matthew Stafford's going to have a good game, you would want to bet his over on PrizePicks. But regardless, that is a very big edge that we have on either the two sites. Obviously, compared to the average sportsbook line, the under on underdog is a very good bet. Now let's go ahead and jump on into the other games. And so let's go ahead and take a peek at this first game. We got Kansas City versus the Houston Texans, guys. So this is going to be an 8.5 point spread, only a 41.5 game total. Now, my biggest takeaway here with the playoffs is that the Kansas City Chiefs are fully good to go in this game. Think about it, guys. They got Hollywood Brown back. He's looked good through the first two games that we saw him play. He didn't play in their last game. Juju hasn't looked completely washed like he did for a couple of seasons. Maybe DeAndre Hopkins starts to see a little bit more snaps in this game. To me, that's kind of why his snaps have been limited, because it had been the regular season and they want him to stay fresh for the playoffs. DeAndre Hopkins is someone that has been a good third down type of receiver and a good goal line receiver. It's kind of weird. He's kind of being used in that way. Xavier Worthy has stepped up and looked really good. He's actually been the leading snap getter for them receiver-wise. You had Kareem Hunt look like he was tapped out once Isaiah Pacheco was ready to come back. And then Kareem Hunt started to look good again. It was strange, but Pacheco is going to be one more week healthy here as well. And Travis Kelce's probably not going to leave the field now. And so this is kind of my long way of saying the Chiefs are kind of more difficult to predict because they have so many pieces now and so many pieces that could get more snaps. So let's kind of break this down a little bit further. What we're going to notice is we're not getting that many great prop bets. Now, do you think that the Chiefs are going to score 3 touchdowns? If yes, Harrison Buckner over 2.5 extra points on underdog is the best bet that we have. But from there, we're not really getting that many good prop bets on paper. Now, Noah Gray is someone that for a good portion of the season, I was calling him the number 2 pass catcher in that offense. I don't know if that's necessarily going to go away, but I think it's like a pat on the back. Job well done, Noah Gray. We'll take it from here with Hollywood Brown, DeAndre Hopkins, Travis Kelce now getting more snaps. That could end up happening. I still think he'll have a role. If this was the regular season, I'd be hammering home this line here for Noah Gray. And so let's just talk through some of these here, guys. Like Hollywood Brown, I do think there's a good chance. Like I would want to bet on his over 3.5 receptions. That's a bet you can do on underdog. It's not going to pay out that well. It's a reduced payout because it's likely to happen. And I think that's partially due to the fact that he got 5 receptions in his first game back where he was playing like 33% of the snaps or so. And then against Pittsburgh was still able to get 4 receptions in a game where he only played like 43% of the snaps. So if you think he's going to get more snaps than this, then yeah, I don't mind this over. That's not a bad way to go about attacking it. Like he looked good enough to me. Now we take a peek at DeAndre Hopkins. This is probably my favorite bet here for the Chiefs in this game. Against Pittsburgh, only 2 receptions in that game. Kind of well to me again. I think he has been having his snaps limited just because they could pretty much. And I'll pull up his game log here for you guys. We're going to notice the targets have been there enough for him to be able to get this over, or at least for it to be a push. And so again, kind of betting on him getting more playing time in this game, thus more targets, thus more receptions. But still, even if he doesn't, this bet is probably a decent bet for us. Another bet that I really don't mind is going to be Travis Kelce to get over 5.5 receptions. Again, I kind of think this will be a little bit like last year where throughout the regular season, we didn't see the traditional Travis Kelce that maybe we've been accustomed to seeing. And then during the playoffs, he really kind of was back to the old Travis Kelce. Now, I don't know if you guys have been watching a lot of the Chiefs games. I'm sure you have, just because there's a lot of primetime Chiefs games, but he clearly is not his old self. Like, he doesn't look good. He's got a good old man game, if you will, like in basketball. If you ever like play pickup games or anything like that, the old man just had this kind of way about scoring and defending. That's just like, how do they just do that? That's kind of Travis Kelce right now. But still, if the role is going to be there, I think he has a good chance to get over 5.5 receptions. So like him and Hopkins are the two that I probably like the most. And then in regards to like Pacheco and Kareem Hunt, to me, it just feels like a stay away. Like logically speaking, I think it's like Pacheco's time to go and really have a good game. But Hunt, again, he did look actually pretty darn good when it seemed like he was going to be phased out of the offense. And vice versa, Pacheco really hasn't gotten going. But again, I kind of feel like he will get going. Like at the beginning of the year, right? If we get like normal Pacheco, like this would be a crazy low line for him, I think, for his over receiving yards. His rush yards honestly seem to be a little bit too low. But really, if it ends up being a game in which they are favored to win by 8.5 points, one of those two running backs is going to get a lot of work. And maybe it just does end up being Kareem Hunt getting that work. And maybe we could actually bet on him to get over 32.5 rush yards. Not a lock and load bet. I don't love it, but I think we could end up seeing that happening. Again, 8.5 point favorites. Maybe we do Hunt over rush attempts. Maybe we do Pacheco over his rush attempts. It's not a bet where I feel like we need to go out of our way to target. Let's go ahead now and jump on into the Houston Texans. That's where I think we're getting some of our better edges, actually. So a bet that you could end up pairing with either Pacheco or Kareem Hunt, maybe rush attempts or rush yards, it's up to you guys there, would be actually John Mechie get over 3.5 receptions. And that would correlate pretty well with how Vegas sees this game going, with it being an 8.5 point spread, in the sense that the Houston Texans would then have more of a pass-heavy script. And if this game doesn't being more of a pass-heavy script, I expect John Mechie to get a ton of snaps in this game. And so if you guys look at it, last week, actually, Robert Woods led the receiver number 2 spot in terms of snaps, where he was able to get 53% of the snaps. Now, the Houston Texans really went out of their way to do a lot of 12 personnel, actually. So Cade Stover played a lot, as well as Dalton Schultz. In the 12 personnel sets, we saw Robert Woods play 92% of those snaps. And so we'll take a peek at him in a second. But in 11 personnel, which is the personnel that the Houston Texans would most likely be in if they're playing from behind, right? John Mechie played in 84% of those snaps when it was 11 personnel. So again, they didn't play in 11 personnel that much last week because, well, they just didn't need to. Their strategy was to do 12 personnel, and it really worked out. Mechie as a whole, though, guys, only played in 49% of the snaps total, but his route share, and this is important, was 64%. So a lot of different percents there. Basically, in summary, if this game ends up being more of a pass-heavy script for the Texans where they're playing from behind in an 8.5 point spread, then he should be able to get his over 3.5 receptions. They clearly do like him, just based off of everything we heard and seen come out of camp and just throughout the season as well. They clearly like him, and he was able to get 4 receptions in that game last week. Now, guys, I do want to call another bet that I kind of like here. It is going to be Robert Woods to get over 18.5 receiving yards. So the biggest question that we had in the last game was who would end up being the receiver number 2 in this offense, and I think we did kind of get that answer. It is, and I say with hesitation, Robert Woods, but also, again, I just called out all the reasons why I like John Mechie to also play a lot and probably be the player that does have a bigger game in the receiving game. But that doesn't mean Robert Woods can't be productive as well. And so I see this prop line difference between PrizePicks and Underdog, and I think it's a good spot to attack on Underdog to get him over 18.5 receiving yards. I kind of like that spot. Now, last week, I really did like the idea of getting to him over 1.5 receptions, and now we're seeing the line that we're getting here is like 2.5 receptions. Now the under is heavily favored there, but if he is someone that does end up getting 2 receptions or even 3 receptions, then I do think he'll be able to get get that over 18.5 receiving yards. Okay, so that's kind of the spot I'm in there for the Houston Texans. Now, it is worth calling out here as well with Underdog prop bets that we are getting CJ Stroud for over 44.5 passing yards in the first quarter as a decent bet. We are getting a slight prop line difference between Joe Mixon as well. So if you think he's going to struggle against this Kansas City defense, that's not a terrible bet. Only a 52.7% edge there. But we're really not getting that many good prop bets in this game. But again, that's kind of going to be expected. It's a 2-game slate. We're not going to really get that many great prop bets. Another bet that's worth calling out here as well, Kyron Fairbairn with his kicking points, 6.5. I don't know if I actually like the over there, but I did want to call it that prop line difference between PrizePicks and Underdog. Maybe 2 field goals and a touchdown is what they're seeing there. It is a low scoring game, so potentially there, but I don't really see any more prop bets here. So let's go ahead and get into the next game. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and get into that next game. We're looking at the game spread. It is a 9.5 point spread in favor of the Detroit Lions winning. It's a massive game total here, guys. So 55.5 is going to be the game total. So a pretty high scoring game. Now, we do have some issues with this game here as well, and that's going to be David Montgomery being back and just how much we'll end up playing in this game, especially in a game where they are going to be 5.5-point favorites. Now, I do think there's a good chance that he does go off against Washington. Like, if we knew that he was going to get his normal workload, right, like we would just go off on these prop lines that we are getting, okay? And so that would be a decent edge for us, but again, I just don't know if we can really trust that. And so if you're kind of more in line with me with that thing, maybe we can't trust the bets that we were getting with David Montgomery one way or the other. Maybe we would want to get to Jahmyr Gibbs. Look at this receiving yards line. To me, this one seems to be too low, even against Washington, where, again, they are projected to win by 5.5 points, which honestly seems probably a little bit too low, but Detroit is coming in off of a bye. Maybe that slows them down a little bit. They are a little bit banged up, or they have been as well. Maybe that all adds up, but if the game does end up being close, then I actually do decently like Jahmyr Gibbs to get over 24.5 receiving yards. And so that to me is a bet that makes sense. And then we go ahead and jump into St. Brown as well. He's kind of the only other player that I feel like we can really trust here, but I don't really want to bet on him to get over 6.5 receptions. It should be a good spot for him. Like, this game, again, if it's going to be a shootout, it's probably going to be because he's having a good game, and maybe we could actually just get to his over receiving yards there. I think I would feel better about that in this game against Washington, where, yeah, they should be able to really dominate here, the Detroit Lions passing game. But maybe we get to Sam Laporta, but I haven't liked betting on Laporta this whole year as well, because it just seems to be based off of where Ben Johnson sees a good fit for Laporta, whether or not you can attack that defense with a tight end. And maybe that does end up happening. Like, I'm fine with this line. I'd be fine to bet this line. So like both him and Jahmyr Gibbs, like, all in all, I think their success lately will be continued in this game. But David Montgomery being back also throws a wrinkle into that mix. And then lastly, let's take a peek at Jameson Williams as well. So Jameson Williams has been someone that has been very productive. I'm actually still shocked that we're getting his line here at 4 for his receptions. I'm kind of just going to roll with the guys for his over 4 receptions. I just think his role has been expanded. He basically hit this over for us right away. And we know this matchup with Washington is a good matchup for the passing game. And so the issue is that I literally just gave you guys like 4 bets that I like in the passing game here for Detroit. We don't want to go too crazy with that, so you're going to have to pick and choose which ones you like the most. I'm going to go with Jameson Williams. And just as an FYI, if you guys are someone that bets on more traditional sportsbook sites, you can actually get this one at 4.5 as like a plus bet because the under 4.5 is heavily favored. So if you do bet the over, it's a decent way to go about doing that. So chances are this will just end up being a push. So let's go ahead and jump on into Austin Eckler and the prop bets that we're getting for him. So last week, you guys know, I really called out Austin Eckler to have a good game in the passing game. And I was kind of shocked that it wasn't more, given kind of the game that we had. It ended up being a little bit closer of a game, but I thought they would really attack that Tampa Bay defense with Austin Eckler through the passing game. He did end up gaining 2-3 receptions for us last week. That was on the last drive. It didn't feel lucky or anything like that. It really felt more overdue to happen in that game. And this is another spot where, kind of given the game script where, sorry, I kept saying they're 5.5-point dogs. They're 9.5-point dogs, guys. Apologies. I said that a few times. They're 9.5-point dogs in this game against Detroit. And so in a game where they're going to be down by that much, I kind of think that Austin Eckler to get 3 receptions at least again today, or in this game, is the move. We look at the snaps. You saw Austin Eckler play about 48% of the snaps, and then Brian Robinson play 51% of the snaps, so that's something that could end up flipping. I still think it's going to be a 50-50 split, but Robinson did get some work in the passing game last week, a little bit more than I thought, and so Eckler to me is the better pass catcher. So again, given the game script, it makes sense for us to be chasing Austin Eckler for his over receptions, but again, it's probably going to be a bet that is most likely just a push. But again, probably playing from behind. He should be healthy in this game as well. Maybe that contributes to him actually getting a little bit more snaps as well. One more week to be good to go. And I do want to call it another bet that we were getting here, guys. So like Zach Ertz for under his receiving yards is kind of a bet that's popping up here against Detroit. Maybe that ends up hitting for him to get under 31.5. That one has a 53% edge. That's the best bet that we kind of have on the board. So if you guys like that, I wanted to call that out to you guys. But I think the best way to go about attacking really Washington, again, given the game script that we have, is probably just looking at their receiver number 2 and receiver number 3. So Zacchaeus and his fantasy score is kind of a bet that I think is decent. If you just look at the lines that we're getting here, like he has 3 receptions and then 34.5 receiving yards. So factoring in a little bit of a touchdown there, but at 7.5, I think you could get there. But if you're doing that, we could end up just betting on his over receiving yards there on underdog. Given the game script, I could see that end up happening. And then Dynamic Brown as well. He was someone that ended up scoring a touchdown last week. And his over fantasy score was a bet that I called out to you guys last week as a solid bet that we had. And again, I don't hate it, but that's a bet now where the data is kind of telling us not nearly as good of a bet. So all these are about a 50% split here for him. And so I do want to talk about the snap counts for those two receivers. So Zaccheaus actually ended up playing 70% of the snaps there. Brown only 61% of the snaps. But if we're looking at guys, even if we know that he's going to get 61% of snaps in a game that is projected to be a blowout, again, 9.5 point spread in a high scoring game, to me, that really tells us pass heavy script. And if it is a pass heavy script, then even if we're getting a guy that's been playing 61% of the snaps, I'm kind of okay betting him to get over 3 receptions there. And so that's a bet that I like. And then I could get there with Zaccheaus for over 3 receptions as well. I don't hate that. Maybe he's someone that we're just better off betting on his over receiving yards there on underdog. Again, I think that'd probably be the better route to go. A little bit weird that he's been pretty solid. Maybe it's just the fact that Brown was back, that he had his first bad game, but again, probably a better bet there on underdog. And so guys, before we get into the bet of the day, do just want to remind you guys of all the tools that are available on 9to5sports.com. So half of the 9to5 membership that's included in your $10 membership is going to be fantasy golf tools. So fantasy golf season has kicked off here for the first 3 weeks, but we are really starting to get into the thick of it here. And so if you guys are someone that typically plays NFL but are looking to jump into golf, head on over to 9to5 Sports, get access to all the golf tools as well as the prop tools that you saw during this video. All of it is going to be available for just $10 a month. All right, let's go ahead now and jump into the 9to5 bet of the day. All right, so getting into the 9to5 bet of the day here, we are going to start with that PrizePicks slip. And so I do really like Travis Kelce a lot here on PrizePicks. Actually, if you were to do this bet on underdog, it'd be a slightly reduced payout. So if you didn't want to run a 3-slip bet out, typically I do not like to run 3-slip bets out on PrizePicks because it's only 5x, whereas on underdog, it's 6x. I get that. So, if you don't want to do that, I get that. Maybe just go one of these two, pair them up, pair both bets up here with Travis Kelce. If you guys want to do that, you could end up doing that there as well. But those are the 3 I like there as well. Again, I like Brown because of the game spread. You could go John Mechie here as well, over 3.5 receptions. That's my favorite bet of the day. I don't want to jinx it, but I'm getting that exposure on underdog. So let's go ahead and jump into that underdog bet of the day. And so I do want to show this to you guys. Like, I do like this DeAndre Hopkins, but I do think there's a good chance that he gets to at least 3 receptions. I actually don't mind the over 3 receptions like I mentioned there on PrizePicks. This is a reduced payout, so 0.8x. If you guys didn't want to include this, if you only wanted it to be a 3-slip bet, you could go about doing that. And so we are kind of splitting our shares here with the Washington passing game as well by doing Brown on one site and then doing Zaccheaus on the other site. One of those two, if not both of them, should be able to get the overs. It really just depends on, well, I would say the play of Jaden Daniels for sure, but maybe the game ends up being a blowout too fast, but I still think they would get blowout run. It's a playoffs, like who cares, right? And then I do like Robert Woods to have a good game, but I am a little bit hesitant to play both these two together in a lineup. And I kind of like John Mechie more just because he played a lot more in 11 personnel. And obviously in a game where they're projected to lose by a decent amount, 8.5 points, we should be expecting a lot more 11 personnel. That's going to be all for this video. Make sure to give a like and subscribe to the channel, guys. Do appreciate you being here. Again, if you guys want access to any of the tools available on the website, head on over there. $10 a month. Thank you guys for watching. Good luck. And as always, let's keep cashing.